Welcome to the You Are the Superhero podcast. This is Damian Nordman. This is the podcast where we are exploring all things business and that support business, also looking at the inner secrets of how success works, from mindset to metaphysics, and also, of course, those strategies and tactics that help your business, and the people who are amazing real life superheroes who are bringing just fantastic things to life in our world that you might not know about. So today I am just super thrilled because I get to hang out with a friend of mine who I've met, as many of my friends these days met online through a networking group or a business or a program or something. But his name is Evans Putnam. And Evans is a coach, consultant, and best-selling author who helps individuals and change-making entrepreneurs with big, positive missions monetize their messages and build profitable, scalable dream client businesses that change lives. Evans is going on his 20th year in the online space as an entrepreneur. I did not know that. I did not realize that. He is the creator of the Infinite Impact Method and seven-figure dream client podcast blueprint and co-founder of My Podcast Coach, which is an awesome group that you got to join if you want to get into podcasting. And then along with being a co-author of the #1 bestseller Million Dollar Dads and soon to be released Entrepreneur's Playbook, Evans is also host of the Infinite Impact Radio podcast, and his trainings have been licensed by and featured in ClickFunnels founder Russell Brunson's high ticket coaching programs. Evans, what's up?
Hey, Damian, it's good to be here. Thank you for that long introduction. So sorry I burdened you with such a long bio.
Oh no, it's fun. I think it's as long as there's cool stuff in it, which I think you have a lot of. I think they're kind of fun to read. It's kind of like let people know like all of the amazing things that you, or at least probably not all of them, but some of the highlights of the things that you've been up to.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the 20 years number. I rediscovered that myself when I was actually doing a podcast because somebody asked me the question and it sort of took me back in time and I started looking at it going, wow, it's been 20 years. And then after I got off that podcast, I actually went online and looked up like on the Wayback Machine on archive.org. And I was able to find my first ever website that I created, just like little bits. It didn't render perfectly because I guess like the coding doesn't work still, but there it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So it's really cool how these sort of self-discoveries can happen even for the person getting interviewed on a podcast as well.
Oh my gosh. That is so funny. Yeah. I mean, and I guess I'd never heard of the Wayback Machine. Is that just a website that retrieves some of the lost data that's floating around the internet?
Yeah, it's created, I think, by archive.org, and they basically, I think it's a nonprofit, but they try to archive like everything that's ever been online. So and obviously the Wayback Machine, I think, comes from Rocky and Bullwinkle is the terminology. So I'm like dating myself all over the place, right? 20 years ago,
Yeah, right.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
A lot of people are like, who's Rocky and Bullwinkle? Like, who?
Right.
What?
And was there a world before, Facebook and YouTube and all those things? Yes, there was. And people were actually online selling things. And I'm one of the people that was doing that.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yep. Evolution of the internet and then evolution of the pre-internet era, which we come from for sure. It's so interesting and so much fun. Yeah. One of these days I need to have some conversations with some younger folks I know and talk about rotary phones and and computers that we're not hooked up to anything and we're just like these big metal boxes with a couple boards in them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My daughter, who's 10, actually, we were watching a movie and these people, it was right at the scene of high drama, right? Where they got to get we got to call the police because my husband and the kids are getting kidnapped or whatever. And I can't, it was like one of the Beethoven movies, The Big Dog, you
Mm.
know, and they got out of the car, ran to the corner of the street and got into a phone booth. And my daughter was like, what are they doing? You know, it's like, why don't they just use their phone to call that? It's like, well, we didn't have those back then. We had pay phones and you had to have change to use it, right? So it's
it's
funny.
it's so wild how fast things have evolved. I mean, it's really not that long at all. I mean, go back 25, 30, 40 years, it's like so much is different.
Yeah. Well, you know what? One thing that it's funny, I'll sort of bridge this gap because you brought this up in the intro. One thing that hasn't evolved is the relationships factor, right? So it's like,
Mm,
I think it's easier now to build a network and relationships online than it was previously, especially over the pandemic year, because everybody started getting on and, you know, everybody's using Zoom now, where before people didn't really know how to use it. So it's been between podcasting and you know, Zooms and networking and things like that. Now you have Clubhouse, you have all these things where people are gathering together and building relationships that you used to have to do offline.
right.
Because when I started in the online world, I think, you know, we had AOL and you had chat, but you didn't have the ability, like when my website was up and it was basically, I was selling local arts and crafts from vendors around the Charleston, South Carolina area. And I was a personal trainer. I just sort of had this idea one day when some of my clients one was an artist and then another one was she was an artist too. And another one had a store that sold these like crafted lanterns and things. But nobody was online. So I was like, let's figure out how to get you online and sell it. So I, you know, built that on the side from scratch, but there was no like two-way communication then where we could get on and talk to people like we can now. So I think that's a big leap and bound from back then too as well. And if you go back before the online businesses, that's how a lot of people did businesses, right? Relationships and referrals and networking. So it's
Right.
almost like it's come full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're bringing up a good point that is interesting because no matter how much, I kind of feel like no matter how much automation gets put in there, I mean, now there is a possibility the person can do a lot of automation in their online business. There's a lot of, um, even like digital courses where, you can take a course without even really interacting with someone, right? However, doesn't seem to work as well as building relationships. And it seems like even if you're going to do some of that, it just works better with the relationship factor and with being able to connect with people because people want to connect with people, right? I mean, that's, yeah. So,
Definitely.
so tell us, I mean, I'm trying to think of where to start. Can you give us a quick overview of your, kind of looking at where you are now and sort of bring us up to speed from some of your history of what did you do to build the businesses that you've got now and that you've done, and I know you've been in the online space, like we said, for 20 years. So what can you give us a snapshot of that, and then maybe we can drill down into a few specific things that look kind of enticing as we go.
Sure. It's funny because when I started in the online, well, I started the first one, as I mentioned, was sort of like an e-commerce store, which we didn't have that terminology back then, creating but it was still about helping others. That's sort of where I always fell in line, was like, how can I help other people succeed? And when I moved on from that business, I sold that business. The first one, it was called Charleston Arts, etc. Sold that, moved on. And then I'd been a personal trainer. So I started doing work where I would reach out to personal trainers who had websites online and I would help them with their copy, because I actually had a degree in writing and editing from NC State University. So I was like, I'd start looking at some of these, and I got really interested in some of the coaches that I saw online who were starting to teach personal trainers how to like make money through sales systems, through, marketing and things like that. And it really caught my eye and sort of pulled me into the marketing world. And I sort of left behind the personal training, the health and wellness, but I continued because I knew that niche. I started reaching out to those people and help them with their marketing and sales. And I sort of I didn't really know what I was doing, but I created myself a marketing, sales, and consulting strategist job. And so I moved on from there, and I continued moving forward. I started spreading out into other areas and finding people that could afford higher price packages. Because as we know, personal trainers, the people I was reaching out to, they didn't have a lot of money to spend. So I started moving up the ladder and started going to, I got into real estate. I got a real estate license. And then I started working with real estate agents.
Oh, nice.
Because they were willing to spend more money to get more leads because the payoff was a little bit bigger.
Right.
So at that time I was still in the consulting and strategist world. And that's when, some things that happened work-wise. We had a young daughter, and my wife was, at the time, she was working and I was working. We were both working. It was really tough on us. And I started making enough money where I was like, hey, if you want to come home and stop working, that's fine. I think I got this. And then we can both be at home. We can still trade off on time and whatever. And as soon as we made that decision, that then I lost 2 of those clients that I had, and I only had 3 because I gotten lazy. So we got to the point where like, we're not making enough money to even barely pay the bill. So I went back out. I had to find another job. And this is leading like to the next step. And this is why I want to share this, is because I did beat myself up for like a day or two. Like, what was I thinking? Why wasn't I filling my pipeline? Right. But then I was like, okay, this is enough. I got to take responsibility, go do what I've always done and find a client. And I actually went online and was looking for some, openings, some people looking for something that would match my skill set. And this thing kept sort of popping up. And well, I saw this position. It said, like somebody looking for someone to write podcast show notes. And I was like, okay, this is like not even in my pay range, really. I mean, it was more of something I would have done when I just started out.
Right.
But for some reason throughout that day, my mind just kept going back to that post. So eventually I reached out to the person, we connected, and long story short, I ended up talking to him and finding out he wanted to do much more than just that. He wanted to grow his podcast. He wanted to build digital courses. He wanted to, help other people, because he had achieved a level of success where he was able to work 4 days a week as an agent, make all this money, but focus on his family, which was important to him. And he wanted to sort of share that gift with other people and show them how. And so after we had that discussion, I was like, okay, let's give this a shot. So I jumped on board and we started working together. And that's sort of where the next phase of my entrepreneurial journey went, because at that point, we worked together. We took his podcast from struggling with no revenue to growing it to over 150,000 monthly listeners, all organically. Went to $500,000 in sales the first 12 months.
Wow.
With, once again, all organically, with a very small team, with a specific system that we built out over time. And now when I share it with people, it's funny because when I meet with people that I work with now and they hear how we did it, and they sort of see the system that I give to my coaching clients and my consulting clients, they're just like, they see it as like a nice package, right? But it was a series of obstacles, failures, change of direction, and just building it step by step along the way. But that business went on to be above a 7-figure business and was sold. I left right before the business was sold because I wanted to go out on my own and start helping other people duplicate the success that I'd gotten with that, because I was like, if I can help him spread his message and mission, I know that I can do the same for others. Then I can sort of multiply my impact
Right.
in the world. So that sort of takes us up to where we are now. And that's really what I focus on now, is helping people use their podcast. If they don't have one, we help them get one launched. If they do have one, we help them optimize it so that they actually turn it into a way to create leads, to cultivate those leads, build a connection, and then create a thriving business full of their dream clients.
Wow, man, that's such a fun story. I mean, that's yeah. I'm always fascinated by people's stories, and I think now more than ever before, I'm very fascinated by entrepreneurial journeys and just like how you were saying. And I don't know that there's any entrepreneur. I mean, unless they were like, somebody like a Donald Trump who was given a few $1,000,000 to get their first business started, like almost all of us have some kind of a like, oh shit, like part of the story, right? Where it's like, maybe it's tough in the very beginning, or maybe it's going just kind of okay, and then you hit like, oh, whoa, I didn't expect this thing to come about. And so I think it's so important for entrepreneurs who are really at any stage of their business to hear like your story, right? Like that that you were first just kind of trying some things out. And I love that, it sounds like you've been in, kind of had your hand in a few different spaces, because being like a personal trainer and getting that, that whole world, and then working with those kinds of people, like to help them grow their businesses. Of course, I guess the very first thing you said was you were just kind of helping people like sell stuff, like sell artwork and stuff.
Yeah, that was when I was a personal trainer too. Yeah, I just had that idea just came to me, and I was like, let's figure out if we can help you sell your stuff online, because you have no online presence. So we actually built a store from scratch and, started helping people. But there was always a theme, excuse me, for me, it was all around helping and coaching and serving, right? But I didn't really tap into that until later. And one thing I will say about the sort of like the oh crap moments and the things that we hit, I think I've hit them more than once.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's almost every time you're about to go to a new level, to a new experience, to go to another step in your life, whether it's personal or business, you sort of have that, right? Like a lot of people, it's that same thing where people always call it the dark night of the soul or whatever. But there's always these moments where you have this decision like, okay, I hit the, I'm down at the bottom. I got to figure out how to get back up and take the next step. And I think it always happens almost in a cycle, right? When you hit the next place, because there's always, people talk about imposter syndrome. And this is important for people listening, is that I heard from my coaches who are very successful. Some of them I've had before, like Russell Brunson and people that are very, very successful. And they say, look, Alex Sharfin's another one. And I remember Alex Sharfin specifically said, I have that moment of imposter syndrome almost every time I push record, whether it's to go live on a podcast, go live on a Facebook video, whatever it is. He's like, even though I've done this so many times, it's like I still have that in the back of my head. Am I worthy of saying this? Am I the right person to share this? And, it's something. So I think that's a real important lesson for people, no matter where they are on the journey, if they're just starting out or whatever. It's like everybody continues to go through that, right? It's just how we handle it and how we move forward, and knowing that if you've got a gift and a message and something to share, people are going to connect with it. So it doesn't matter if you're just starting out, if you're, you've been in the business for 20 years, if you're very, very successful and run a multi-million-dollar company, there's people out there that need to connect with what you have to offer. So I think that's one way to, to get over the whole imposter syndrome thing, for sure.
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so many things you just said that are golden wisdom. And I'm going to ask you about, go a little deeper with some of them. So, okay, let's jump back to those oh shit moments that we were just talking about. And let's look at like why do you think those happen? Like, I know you're a pretty deep thinker. I know you've studied some far out there stuff. So if you want to incorporate some of that, you can, but obviously bringing it, into focus is like a practical side. Why do you think why do you think those have to happen? Like, what's the reason for that? Or maybe give us an example of one from your life or a client's life, and maybe let's just look at that as like a case study.
Yeah, I don't know if I know why it has to happen, but I know it all has to do around expansion and growth. There always seems to be that moment where, you can't go to the next level until you sort of hit a wall or until you fail. And it causes you to sort of take your thinking, your thought process, and your awareness and take it to a different direction and a different level, right? So it's like,
Okay.
if you're stuck doing, like, I mean, you could sit there, let's say you're great at Facebook ads or SEO, and you just have this system and you do it all day, every day for 10 years. And then all of a sudden that platform that you use goes bankrupt and disappears. If you've been
Right.
stuck in that same thought process and the same habits and the same habitual thinking over and over and over, and you're just in this sort of lazy robotic pattern, when that happens, then it's almost like something out there is saying, hey, you've been stuck for too long, it's time to grow. So I
Okay.
think a lot of it has to do with, we are made to expand and to grow and to move forward, not to stay still.
Yeah.
And so, you have to run into roadblocks sometimes. I mean, we had with our business, the one part of the story I didn't talk about, I became a partner in that podcast with my client. He was my client at first. I later became a partner. And we were at the point where we were pretty much like a weekend away from shutting down, from closing that business.
Yeah.
Because we had grown, we had used some strategies to grow the podcast, but we weren't bringing in the revenue. We
Right.
hadn't figured out how to attach that to, hey, we've
Yeah.
got all these people listening now. And
What to do?
another, it's one of these things. Once again, I know you'd probably connect with this too, is like listening to that, really getting quiet and listening to that voice when it sort of talks to you and taps you on the shoulder to pay attention. Because we were actually scheduled, we had gone all in, we're going to this event, right? We're going to go learn at this event, we're going to take our budget. If it doesn't work after this, we give up. So we had planned to go to this event. It was in San Diego. Probably like a week and a half, 2 weeks before we were supposed to go to that, these ads started popping up. And it was like, I started seeing this content that kept showing up, and it was Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels and his book, Expert Secrets. I ordered the book, I got it. I don't remember if I got it before we left or afterwards, but I really connected with the message. And then he started talking about his event.
Yeah.
I was like, we got to go to this. We need to go to Funnel Hacking Live. I don't know why, but we just need to go to this event. It was like that feeling. I was listening to that voice and that feeling. It felt right. The other event just didn't have that excitement to it. It didn't have an emotional lift when I thought about going out to it. It was in San Diego. Turns out they were on the same weekend.
Oh
So
wow.
my business partner looked at me and he was like, well, let's go to the one in Orlando. We'll go to the Funnel Hacking Live. We'll see if we can get our money back over here. But I mean, we were literally ready to shut the business down if we didn't go there and find a solution. We went there and we got some ideas. We had some people we met through networking that started talking to us and sharing some ideas. We took them back, started using them, started seeing momentum, and it changed everything in the business. That's where we started like skyrocketing to that $500,000 run rate. And it was all because of listening to that decision, right? It was like we were hitting a roadblock. We were about to fail. It was like we could have just said, okay, let's just, go to this thing, give up, whatever.
Right.
But instead we kept going. But the most important thing is that we took another risk, right? We already had this one planned out, and we had there were speakers there that we wanted to go see. And we were like, this is going to be the thing. And then my business partner, I have to give him credit too, because he listened to me. And when I explained to him, I was like, I don't know why. I just have this feeling. It's like an intuition. Something's telling me we have to go to that. But we ended up joining a coaching program, Russell Brunson's high ticket coaching program. And from there, everything changed by making that one decision. So I think a lot of times, I know that's sort of a long way around it, because I don't really have the answer to your first question, but it's all about, you're going to hit those places. And a lot of times the best thing you can do is just listen to that inner voice and let it guide you, rather than just trying to force the issue. Right.
Right. And I think a lot of us in our Western world, especially men, particularly, it's like we want to like stay the course, right? It's like we want to like, let's keep going in this direction and just keep going. But sometimes you got to make that pivot, because that's really where the answers are for what you're trying to do. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to say one more thing about this, and you tell me what you think if you think this might be true. If I can remember what I sort of, so do you think that, I mean, you kind of described it. I feel like you described it pretty well with the whole thing with us, needing to grow, right? Like growth and expansion are part of our nature. And so, I guess another way I would say it is, whether, even if a person maybe hasn't been doing something for 10 years, maybe it's just been a short period of time, but like if we're running up against like those limitations, and we haven't expanded beyond what we're currently operating at. There's another way I was trying to say it. I'm sorry. It's kind of left me now. Oh well.
No, I mean, it makes I think I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense too. And I'll share this with you. When I was making, it wasn't that my wife had a great job. She was working as a general manager at a really nice restaurant, but the hours is what killed us, right? She wouldn't get home till like 2, 3 in the morning.
Wow.
And she'd get up so I could go to work. I mean, she was sacrificing more than I was. And so when she came home, even then, when I was making enough money, I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Right. So that job was not happy. So it was like, all of a sudden, when I got hit with that boom, all your options are gone. Your clients are quitting for one reason or the other. It wasn't anything I did. One of them was a nonprofit. They ran out of money. Another one had something going on, but it was almost as if I could have stayed in that comfort zone and gone out and found other clients like that and kept trading time for money, because that's what I was basically doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I also knew that it was not what my main goal was, to be a better father and a better family person, to be
Okay.
able to not be exhausted all the time, to be present. And by that happening, it shifted everything. And this person that I went to work with, and the way I was able to grow as an entrepreneur and learn new things, and work with somebody he crafted his whole lifestyle and business around being a better father. Right. And so I didn't know that at the time. I didn't actually catch this until later, but it was like we went through this. It was almost like he was there to be a mentor in some ways for me, for the way his life was, and things he did, and the way he made family first important,
Yeah.
and all of these things. Right. So I grew through that. But once again, I got to this point where I just felt constrained. And that also happened at that funnel hacking live, because I had sort of this tap on my shoulder that was like, hey, you're going to be able to create something great with this. Don't stay in it. Take a risk, leave. Because a lot of people ask me, what were you doing? You were a partner in this business and it was just starting to be really profitable and it was on an upward trend. And then you left, right, to go take another risk and grow a little bit more on my own. So when I look back on the journey, it all makes sense. When it was happening, it didn't make sense, right? It was like, why is this happening? And then when you look back at it, it's like, oh, now I see the progression was the way it was supposed to be all along. And if I would have just kept pushing through, like you said, and stayed the course, one of my coaches, Philip McKernan, was actually telling me this the other day, how he runs into so many people and you can show them two paths to where they want to go, right? And one path is like this beautiful walk down by the coast of some beach with flowers everywhere, and at the end is this bright rainbow, and the other one is like this deep jungle that you have to have a machete to like chop through and get there. And he's like, there's something about the human condition where the majority of people will choose to go through that jungle just to prove that they can do it, when they could just listen to the universe or whatever you want to say, listen to God, spirit, whatever, and let go of the expectations and just sort of go the easy path, right? So so I don't know how I got there, but that
Well,
I think when I look back on it now, it's like if I would have realized a lot of this back then, maybe I would have not run into those pain points, because maybe that's something that happens to us when we find ourselves not listening to what our spirit is telling us we need to be doing. That's when we get hit with the pain that says, hey, wake up. You need to pay attention. Maybe you're going the wrong way. It's time to change direction. So that might be the answer to your original question.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think though part of the whole thing is that we have to have these contrasts to even understand like when we are listening, right, and when we're not listening, and without the experiences, it's it's almost impossible. Not impossible, but it's often harder to tell until you've had an experience and you can say, oh yeah, that was a great move, or oh yeah, that was not such a good
Right.
that was I can see now that that wasn't such a good idea. but then yeah, we grow wiser, and so and then we can help, like what you're doing, teach other people, hopefully to bypass some of that or make it easier or make it faster or something. So absolutely.
Yeah. You know what Joe Polish said? This was something that always catches me because my daughter's one of her favorite movies is E.L.F.
Mm-hmm.
And I just read one of his books, and it's like this E.L.F. keeps hitting me in the face because it stands for easy, lucrative, and fun. Right? Choose the path in business that's easy, lucrative, and fun. If it doesn't for him, if it doesn't hit on those 3 points, then he is like, nope, not going to do it. So now, all I see is Will Ferrell when I hear that. Like, okay, I need to hang out with Will Ferrell in my next business to do the E.L.F. thing, the easy, lucrative, and fun.
Was he the writer or the director, or who was Joe? Who was he?
Joe Polish is he's an entrepreneur. So he's written a few books. He's got the Genius Network is one of his businesses.
Okay.
And he's a really good guy. He was really close friend of Sean Stevenson. I don't know if you know Sean Stevenson. They used to call him the 3-foot giant, and he passed away, I guess, probably like 2 years ago. Yeah. But Joe Polish he's got a great story too. I mean, he went from drug addict to, multi-million, maybe billion entrepreneur. But so that's how he judges when he makes decisions on business decisions or anything that he's going to choose to do. It's like, is it going to be easy, lucrative, and fun? And I think we're trained to, if it's not hard, that it's not worth it.
Right.
Totally. When it's like, or you could just let go and, just take the easy route. And
and I mean, just to like, there's some other questions I want to ask you, but because I think you're hitting on a point that people listening really need to hear. And just as an example, like a buddy of mine during the pandemic, he got into cryptocurrency, right? And he had never really delved into it, and he actually kind of has now pulled me into it. But like within the last, I mean, oh gosh, he made a little bit of money last year, and then in the last 3 months, he's taken about 20 grand in crypto and turned it into 113 grand, right?
Wow.
And he's just like, he loves it. He's having so much fun. It's like, all of it. It's like he just loves the whole, like almost any facet with it, investing it and becoming like the crypto bank and doing like all these different things that you can do with it. And so he's teaching me a little here and there, but it's easy. Like you said, it's easy, it's lucrative. And for him, it's a lot of fun. And now I'm starting to do some of it, particularly with a certain system that one of the Helium network, and I'm like, well, this is pretty fun for me too. This is like easy, it's fun, and I'm already within the last couple weeks, I'm making some money at it. So it's like, yeah, I feel like that ELF that ELF uh, acronym that's a good. I like that. That's so
Yeah.
true. That's so
And it's
true.
easy to remember, but yeah, it is. It's definitely true. So if you start focusing, because I mean, think about it. You don't want to get, and I've fallen into this trap many a times, right? You don't, as an entrepreneur, you don't want to create a business that you end up resenting, right? You don't want to have clients you don't enjoy and you start to
Yeah.
resent them for taking away your freedom and, doing all these things. So a lot of what I try to focus on now, and I'm not 100% there in any way, shape, or form, but is focusing on designing, starting with designing my day, but designing your life, right? Design your business to fit into your life, the kind of life you want. So if you want,
Yeah.
and that's a great, and an acronym, E.L.F, easy, lucrative, and fun, right? Um, that's a good way to go, because if you don't design it, then you're going to end up, and I fell into this trap when I was a personal trainer, when I was just starting out as a freelancer, as a consultant, often like chasing the transaction and worrying about that rather than, okay, nice paycheck, but what am I really paying for? What am I getting out of it? It's not the transaction isn't equal, right? So we really have to focus on that when we're designing the business we want to build as well. If you don't want to work, if you only want to work 4 days a week, then find a way to do it. I mean, my past business partner is a prime example of that. He sold over $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion of real estate, number one in the world for 2 companies, while working like 3.5 to 4 days a week. And he designed that life specifically so he could spend those other days with his family, with his young
Yeah.
daughters, and watch them grow up. Um, and he didn't have to sacrifice. And the funny thing is when he was really working, and here's a story that goes back to it, when he was really working hard, like hard at what he was doing and pushing, he was working like 70 hours a week, and his first paycheck was $13,000 and something for
Wow.
a year for commissions.
Wow.
So imagine that, working less, taking it easier, designing it, and then I don't even know the ROI on that, or the difference between 13,000 and $1 billion in real estate. That's a big difference, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's really a smart thing to think of, and it's all because once you design it and design some joy and some fun into it and know you enjoy it, then it is going to make it more easy. And from everything that you see, once you start see it, I think the problem is that it goes against what we grew up being taught and what we learned. Like,
Right.
right, the harder you work, the more you make, the more you push, the farther you get. And we're taught all these things. And it's like,
So
maybe that's just not true.
right. Here's I want to ask you this. So what would you say to somebody then who this is like really challenging their belief systems, right? Because I mean what you're describing makes sense to me, because I've always, just for me, even when I wasn't making a whole lot of money or even trying to make money, like the concepts of like out of the box concepts were just easier for me to like latch onto, because I believe in past lives and I've had all these other mystical experiences and all this kind of stuff. But for somebody, and so like, and now hanging out with entrepreneurs and millionaires, it's like, okay, more and more it's like, oh, okay, these things make sense, even if I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z yet. It makes sense to me. So for someone whose their belief system is just like, you're really challenging to think, okay, how could I ever, maybe they've only made 30 grand a year in their life, right? Or maybe they've only ever done certain things or been around people who, like you say, are like, you got to work really hard, and life's going to be tough, and like, do you have any suggestions for expanding one's belief system and receiving these new ideas as a possibility for one's own self?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is that you have to sort of step out of your comfort zone and maybe start exploring other avenues. So maybe if you're over in this world where it's all been, this is the way it is, this is the way it's always been, you have to go out and just start reading stories of other people, right? And if somebody else can do it, you can do it too. I mean, there's no like magical, I mean, I've had so many coaches, and you start getting into what they do. And the thing that's so funny is that it always comes back to what you're touching on, and it's belief and mindset. But you have to start seeing what, and gosh, I wish I could remember what I saw the other way. It was the most simple. Mike Dooley, who you probably know who Mike Dooley is. I can't remember the book he wrote, but
Sounds very
he writes something like Letters from the Universe or something. He sends out emails that he gets, but he said something that made so much sense. He's like, decide what you want, think of the things you need to do to switch your mindset to get those, and then act on it.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. So, I mean, it's really, there's no magic pill. And that's the thing is, like, I want to say this too. It's like, just because we're talking about the easy way doesn't mean that there's some kind of like shortcut or like,
Right.
Get rich quick kind of thing. It's more about following what feels right for you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know for me, this is, whenever I think about this, a lot of people talk about, like you don't have to row upstream. You just let the boat go downstream.
Yeah.
But for me, I remember growing up in like when I was going to visit my grandparents, they lived on this river, the Green River in North Carolina.
Okay.
And I used to go visit their cabin, and the river, it was like, I knew this stretch of river like the back of my hand, because I had gone down it like with an inner tube without one many times and been in the water. I knew where all the rocks were. So like I could either walk through that river from one side to the other, and it would take a lot of effort and energy, or I could just sort of hop and skip across on the rocks the easy way, right? It was still an amount of effort and still taking me to the same destination, but one was much easier. And I think you just have to start thinking of things differently. I don't know if there's really an easier way, than to read books, to hire a coach. If you feel like you have something, find somebody that's done it before you, and, do your investigation. Don't just hire. There's a lot of bad coaches out there, but there's a lot of good ones out there too. And a lot that have been really successful and are willing to share what they've done. Find a mentor, find some sort of you have to step out of this bucket and start trying things, even if it's just a little bit at a time, to build that belief system. But, I think I have no doubt that it's not like we're not, I know the show is superheroes, right? Or the superpowers thing, but we all have our own superpowers.
Yeah.
It's like we're all superheroes. We're not, it's just not that this guy's really successful, so that he must be Superman. It's like we all are. We just have to believe that and take that step, because if it's been done before, it can be done again. And all you have to do is have the belief and then follow somebody and that's one of the reasons that I decided to do coaching around the podcast sales system that we created, was because I could show people. And I have so many people that are like just frustrated, right? They're frustrated. They're like, I got a podcast. It's not, and I've got a business, I've got an offer, I got a podcast. I can't figure out how to make them work together. And it's like, okay, well, I can show you, because I've done the exact same thing before. So here, take this step, this step, this step. And it just opens their eyes once they see it and they've seen somebody else has done it, and it creates a belief system that they can possibly do it too. They take action, small steps at a time, and it opens the door to more successes, and it changes their belief even more. So that's really the only way to do it, is to, to try that.
Yeah. But part of what I hear you saying is, you got to get in there and try some things. And I just wanted to say something about what you said about the coaches, because not only are there good coaches and bad coaches, there can be good coaches that aren't the right fit for you too. I know my first business coach, I mean, he's an amazing guy. He's very wealthy. He's helped, probably 1,000 or 2,000 people like really transform their business. Or he's coached probably 1,000 or 2,000 people. And I know several of them he's helped transform their business. And even though I learned some stuff from him, it didn't really like transform my financial life, right? But it set me on a path, and it got me down the road. That's actually how I met Michelle Abraham. It's how I met you. Then therefore through her, how I met you, and through Michelle, that's how I met my second business coach, who did help me like actually focalize in on more of really where I should be, where I wanted to be, and help me to actually make some money at it, which was, very transformative. So I think so if I had never, invested in the first coach, who again, amazing guy, and like introduced me to all these people and concepts and things that I was still, kind of new to, um, was that a loss, or was it just part of the investment and the process to get my beliefs up and start thinking in a certain way and start meeting some new people, that has led to where I am now. And then, one thing leads to another. So I feel like that's really important. I mean, even if you end up with a crappy coach, right? Maybe you end up with a really bad coach, but then you go, okay, well, that sucked. Now I'm going to find someone who's really good.
Right. Yeah.
so,
I mean,
so
like you mentioned earlier, it creates the awareness, right? If you don't have that, if you didn't have the awareness that this is bad and this is good, right? So you just didn't know any different. So you just have to take the first step. And, one thing I would say too is that, it goes back to what we were talking about, E.L.F. Find something that you enjoy, right? Because if you
yeah,
enjoy it, if it brings you joy, think of how you can share that with other people, right? Think of how you can serve other people and how you can share that joy and that experience, that thing that with other people. And I mean, I'm in a coaching program where one of the people, and a lot of people think, oh, if you're in a coaching program, it has to be, oh, you sell business, you teach people how to make money, this and that. Well, this one guy that's in our program, he loves shooting outdoor photography and he's great at it, action photography. And he created a multi-million-dollar business around teaching other people because he knew other people would find joy in the same thing that he had. So even if we've been working in a job for our entire life and we've decided, we hit this point where it's like, okay, I just got to go do this other thing. We all have expertise and we're all good at something, and people out there want to know that thing. And now it's easier than ever to get out there and share that with other people, right? So it doesn't matter if you think, if you're like, well, what I know how to do, nobody else likes that. But I mean, yes, I guarantee you there are a lot of people
right,
out there that
right,
like it. And now it's easier than ever to find them.
right.
And the thing is that if it brings them joy that you're showing them how to do that, then it's a good thing, right? And that's going to create more belief in you that like, hey, I'm doing good, I'm giving back, I'm helping others. And that's just going to keep the cycle of abundance going, right? So if you're giving and serving others and then they're getting joy out of it and it just comes back to you. So that's the one thing one of the biggest takeaways that I got when our business shifted was we went from focusing on transaction to transformation.
Yeah,
It was like I had been in a very transactional world where, like Damien would come hire me to help write sales and marketing copy for his website, funnel, whatever it is, and I would deliver that transaction over, next time you need another email written, come find me and we'll do that. And now that we've moved in, with the business, I got so successful the first time with Pat, with creating sales courses and transformations, it was really about the transformation of the person and how they achieved this goal that they wanted. And they kept coming back and we kept serving them and kept helping them. And it just sort of kept that cycle going. And it became more of a relationship and a transformational approach to business than the transaction. And I think that changed everything for me when I realized it's like, hey, serve first, contribute, help others. And but don't always do it for free, right? You have to create a business that does it, but but now, I mean, I see my clients and the people I work with more as people that I collaborate and co-create with, rather than somebody that I just create. Here's your email, here's your copy, here's your thing, see you later, good luck, go have success.
Right.
So I think that's a big shift, right? When people want to start thinking, and if you're coming out of a 9-to-5 world where you're just getting a paycheck, an exchange, a transaction for goods and services, it's almost hard to switch to that mindset. But
Right.
it just takes some time, and do what feels right, and that's easy, lucrative, and fun. And usually that has with serving and helping other people and contributing to their success, and they will help contribute to your success.
Oh man, so true, so spot on. Yeah, I feel like you're just nailing it. Like everything you're saying, absolutely what people need to hear. So, I've got one more question for you before we wrap up, and that is, what is your superpower?
Oh gosh, what is my superpower? So I mean, that's a hard one, but I would say that, it's always been serving without expectation and helping others. Well, I'll tell you, this is what I was told the other day, and it really like lit me up. So maybe this is it. I was told by somebody I really respect, who has been one of my coaches before. I went into one of their groups and I shared a presentation, and I taught it in a brand new way that felt right. It felt easy, lucrative, and fun, right? It felt like I was lit up while I was teaching it. And at the end, she was like, and I got messages from a few of these people too. And they said, you came in and taught us something we needed to hear, something we needed in our business. But two of the people said the biggest thing that we got from any of that was hope and belief, and that
Mm,
you were able to transfer belief and hope to some of us that felt like there was no way we could accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. And now they're just lit up and moving forward with massive momentum. So
wow.
maybe that's it. Maybe if I can share, if that's it, then I'll take it, being able to share hope and belief in you and your gifts and your message and your mission, and that you have the ability to shine it out in the world to attract the right people and affect the right people.
Yeah. Love that. Love that, brother. Yes. I think that's accurate. I think that's spot on. So cool. So
Well,
cool.
good, because somebody else told me, because I would have been like, oh, well, I don't know what it is. But yeah,
It's
but
good to
yeah, I'll take it. I'll take that one. That's a good one to have. So I'll take that compliment for sure.
It is. It is. That's so cool. All right. So before we wrap up here, so I know you got a lot of stuff. Actually, man, I need to have you come on again because I really wanted to talk about $1 million dads, but we're kind of running short on time. So maybe let's save that for another conversation because I feel like there's a whole other like direction we could go there. And just
Yeah.
a little this little fun little teaser. I did a podcast with Chris Baden last week, who you
Yep.
introduced me to, and oh my gosh, we had so much fun, and we actually kind of got into the whole thing like with him teaching his kid how to be an entrepreneur, right? And so got so much fun. I think we probably talked about that more than anything else.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I could,
yeah.
I actually talked with him. He's I'm in one of his masterminds now, and Chris and I, we see each other at least twice a week, and what a great guy. But I will say this too, because I told him, I got to give my daughter a shout out. My daughter's 10. She is creating like, animated videos, YouTube
What?
thumbnails. She edits, she adds, she grabs music and adds it to the video. She knows how to remove things from the backgrounds. I'm just like, and people, when I shared this with the mastermind, all these entrepreneurs are in there like, how can we hire her?
I
I'm like,
know.
I
I'm
know.
How soon can I hire her? Because when I get
Right.
into YouTube, I'll definitely need that.
But what makes me the proudest, like being the dad part too, is the resilience and the way she did it. Because I'm always like, how did you learn this? You never asked me anything. I haven't shown you anything. She's like, I just go on YouTube and search for it, watch it, and figure it out. And I'm like, you could teach adults, many adults I know, a lot of things, right? So it's amazing. So yeah, I have to throw that in. But Chris is a great, great guy. So cool you guys connected.
Yeah, so cool. I love hearing about kids and their adult parents and their kids and how that whole dynamic. It's just cool. All right. So last thing, how can people reach you? I mean, what's the best way to connect if they want to either hire you or just find out more about you? What's the protocol there?
Well, we got, and here's the cool thing. We might have to do a part two because we got so many cool things in transition right now that you don't even know about, even though you're a part of some of our world a little bit. So because of that, I'm going to say, and I like to just make it easy. The easiest, simplest way for people to connect with me is send me a friend request on Facebook. Find me, Evans Putman, Evans Putman, for those listening. There's only two of us. One of them's my page. One of them's me. We look the same. So, both of them will come to me, but go to like the personal profile, send me a message to Evans Putman and just reach out to me and connect like a real human connection. And I'll be glad to, hop on a call, meet with people, just discuss strategy, see if there's a way I can serve them and help them and go from there. But that's always my favorite way, instead of sending them to 50 different
Right.
websites, just reach out to me, connect, and let's start a real conversation.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Keep it simple, man. So good. So good, brother. This has been fun. This has been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed talking with you. And yeah, looking forward to any other future creations, collaborations, or connections that we have for sure.